Welcome back to the Tuxes and Tomahawks podcast. I'm Adam Dorito, and today I have a very special guest, Representative Scott Bottoms, State Representative of District 15 here in the state of Colorado. We're in a contentious race this year for the governor. We have Michael Bennet, who's willing to dump $30 million into the state to try to win this. And as somebody who has personally worked with Michael Bennett's office for several years now on the Dorito Act, or the Military Mental Health Justice and Protection Act, he's done nothing for our state. He's done nothing for our constituents. We need somebody to bring back some conservative values that can reach across the aisle, that can actually work for Coloradans who are desperate for some type of leadership. Mr. Scott Bottoms, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I've got a lot to say about all that, but great to be here.
And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to actually have a long-form discussion. I think the problem that we have with the state GOP and the way politics has been running Colorado for so long is we don't give the interviewer enough time to actually talk to these people, get to know who they are. I mean, our state is so big, it's nearly impossible for you to get to every county and knock on every door. And I hope that a lot of people watch this interview and get to know who you are as a man and what your intentions are when you're running for governor for our state of Colorado.
Yeah, that's I agree with that. I just did an event earlier today, and they gave me 40 minutes, and I was pushing at the end of that 40 minutes to try to get it all in. There's a lot going on with Colorado, a lot of things we have to fix, a lot of changes, and all of this. How do you sum that up in 2 or 3 minute bites?
Exactly. So, Scott, just a little bit about yourself. Where did you come from? You know, how did your early years begin, and how did you decide it was a good idea to get involved in elected representative government here in the state of Colorado?
Yeah, that's the big question. Very long answer, but I can squeeze this part down. So I was actually born in Colorado. My wife was born in Colorado. We lived in Texas younger in our lives, but the Colorado's always been a place. I've always had family here, always visited. I've loved Colorado. It really is a major part of my heart. The early years, I went into become a pastor. I went into ministry at 20 years old, and at that same time, I was in the Navy. I'd been in the Navy since I was 17, and then went into reserves, had all this military time frame incorporated with that, and then came to Colorado in 1996 to be the lead pastor of a church, pastored a church out in Strasburg for a while after that, and then came to Colorado Springs about 13 years ago to be the pastor. I've always been a little politically charged, I guess you could say. I don't shy away from the political stuff. I know as pastors and in church thinking, you're supposed to stay out of politics. I've never agreed with that. That doesn't make sense. That's like one of the most major part of our society. Why would the church stay out of those conversations? And most of the stuff nowadays that's considered political or not political, they're moral issues. And so when COVID hit, a lot of people think this is the springboard. I don't think it was for me, from my perspective, but a lot of the community saw it this way. When COVID hit, we did not distance, mask, close the doors. We didn't do any of that stuff. In fact, we were talking in the November of 19. I sat down with my board and I said, it looks like this thing is coming and it's going to be something to try to shut the church down. And so we came up with a plan, which part of that plan actually included, if I go to jail, we do this. And we didn't shut down our church. And I think maybe one family, 2 families left because of that. But people were driving to our church from all over Colorado Springs because they found out we were open. These are not people that are part of our theological thinking or whatever, but we were open.
Right.
And this kind of kicked it forward. And then a few years later, I had a phone call from a couple of representatives, and they kept saying, well, you need to consider running for representative. I'm like, I don't do that. I'm a pastor. That's what I do. And then one of the representatives, she said, well, would you promise to at least pray about it? And I thought, that sounds like a trap, you know? So I did pray about it, and here I am. Last fall, I really began to feeling stirred in my heart that I need to run for governor. And this was a spiritual decision first, but it was fueled by all of this evil and this craziness we've been doing in the House of Representatives, this truly attacking children, attacking parents, attacking our state, attacking business owners. When the whole COVID thing went down, we had business owners that found out we were open, and they would come to our church, and we'd bring them up front and pray for them. These weren't even necessarily church people, Christians, or any of that. We'd bring them up front, and the whole church would pray for them. One of these was a coffee shop in Castle Rock that was being picked on directly in the news by Governor Polis. And they ended up coming to our church and really becoming part of the church family. And so all of this has been just my journey in this. And now I really believe that I need to run for governor, and I actually really believe I'm going to be the next governor. And so that's where we are right now. And there's a lot of reasons behind that can explain, but I'm going to be the next governor of Colorado.
You know, and that's an inspiring thing to hear, is because this is something I complain about to a lot of people. I've worked in federal politics and legislation for about 15 years now, trying to reform our Air Force Academy. I'm a veteran as well. I'm still serving in the Army. And the biggest problem I see with a lot of people who want to get involved in politics is that they want to run for politics. And my biggest contention with it is, actually, the only people who should be running for politics are people who don't want the job. And it sounds like you didn't want the job, because I always tell people you have two decisions if you're going to get involved in this stuff. Is you could be a resident or you can be a citizen. Residents like to sit, eat, go to work, take their kids to soccer practice, complain online, all these Facebook groups, everything else. But nothing's going to get done or accomplished with that.
Right.
You know, if you really want to take the initiative, it's being a citizen. And that means sacrificing your time, your money, your treasure, and time away from your family and your job in order to show up to the PTA meetings or show up to the board meetings or state rep or county commissioners. Because when I first started getting involved in local politics, when I was working for the Trump campaign during the election season, I'd show up to a Weld County commissioner meeting and there's like 4 people in the room. And I watch all these people, as an oil and gas guy who watched over 100,000 jobs in 4 major companies I used to work for leave the state.
Right.
And I see 5 people up there making the decisions and no one's even paying attention to it. So I decided from that point on, I have to stay involved on the local side. And then, as you know, you're a representative. You start working with these people, and the snakes are coming out of the woodwork. And then we're fighting on bills that nobody asked for. I mean, we're going to get to that for sure. But like, you have to be a citizen and not a resident when it comes to this stuff, and take that responsibility and sacrifice. But some of the insane stuff that has been going on in Colorado, I just don't understand from a moral and ethical perspective. I'm also, a Christian man. I'm Catholic. And what I don't understand is who is asking for these bills? I'm looking at, Ken DeGraff saying there were a bunch of tax-paying widgets, and now the state of Colorado is threatening to take away our children if we don't identify them as the right gender at 5 years old, or if they want to be a cat or whatever it is. I don't see 150,000 Coloradans saying, we need to pass this bill. I better contact my state, representative and have them push this bill. What did you see once you got elected, working in the state capitol, of the groups working to push agendas that the citizens of Colorado, the majority of us, especially the non-affiliated voters, nobody asked for this? And why do we waste so much taxpayer money and time trying to pass nonsense bills on gasoline stickers, transgender ideology, and violating the rights of our women?
Okay, this is a very big answer. This is so important because this is not being seen and understood by the average person in Colorado. So let me preface it with this. There are Democrats that have reached out to me for the last couple of years, actually. One is, can we get rid of some of these, help us get rid of some of these Marxists in the House, okay? And these are Democrats. And then I have Democrat leadership reach out to me. I've had Democrat donors reach out to me, and they're all saying the same thing. How can we make you governor? Now, this is interesting because this is kind of the crack in the wall that lets you see the bigger picture. Okay, so let me walk you down some process of thought, because nobody's asking the question that you just asked. Nobody's asking the why question, not the what question. We know 1312 takes children away from parents. We understand that we are now funding constitutional approved abortion, which wasn't going to be part of it. We also know that we're funding illegal immigration. So the question is why? Why does this seem to help the Democrats? Why does it seem to help the state? Well, the easy answer is it doesn't help the state. And it doesn't help the Democrats per se at large across the state, but it definitely helps a small group. So let me explain this. Let's back up a little bit, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of this. There's a book written called The Blueprint, and it's about Governor Polis and how he's going to take over the state of Colorado. Not just how he's going to become governor, that's actually small beans, but how he and a group of people are going to take over the state of Colorado and control the state of Colorado.
Yeah, Pat Stryker and the rest of them.
Yes.
Yep.
And turn it blue, but not just turn it blue, but turn it even further than that. So let me explain this. Then you've got the Governors Association. So Governor Polis is the president of the Governors Association. There's only a couple of governors, or a few governors in the entire United States that are not part of this. And that's some ultra-conservatives like Kristi Noem and stuff like that.
Sure.
So the Governors Association, a lot of people don't realize, is financially supported by and controlled by, run by the World Economic Forum.
Interesting.
These are all of the governors in the United States. So when COVID hits, all these governors, for the most part, they were very similar, but some states were exactly the same. And if you remember, Governor Polis made a pact with that these 5 states were going to stand together: California, New Mexico, I believe Oregon, and Washington.
Washington,
I think.
yeah.
And we're going to all stand together, and this is the packet. They handed out the exact same plan to the people of their state, word for word, the exact same plan. This is what we're going to do during the pandemic. Well, many other governors had very, very similar plans. Well, come to find out now, we found that these governors had this plan in their hands a year and a half before the pandemic started. So where's this coming from? This came from the World Economic Forum, and nobody's hiding this. This is stuff you can find. I'm not talking conspiracy stuff. I'm saying things that World Economic Forum has talked about. So when you couple that with the fact that we're taking away parental rights and we're taking away the freedoms of children, I encourage people all the time, you need to read the Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn.
It's a great book.
Okay,
Well,
and
great
part of
series
the
of books.
reason for that is because, you know, we see in World War II, Hitler was responsible for 20 million people killed, 6 million of them Jews. Russia, during that same time frame and a little bit longer, killed 180 million of their own people. They would pull children away from families and put them in the gulag just because they were a family unit. Why? Because that is the essence of Marxism/communism. You can't have family. You can't have parental authority. We need to use the term parental authority, not parental rights. I don't have a right to be the parent over my children. I've been given that authority by God himself.
Yes.
Okay, so separating children from family, grooming the children, controlling the children, taking away parental rights, then you take away your Second Amendment rights. Why? Because when they come for your children, if you still have your guns, they're not getting your children, and they know that. This isn't just taking away your First Amendment rights, it's taking away your rights in a general sense. All of this is designed by the World Economic Forum. So the last 3 years in a row at the State of the State by Governor Polis, he explained to us, nobody needs to own property. He says this publicly, but nobody's listening. Nobody needs to own property. You can rent spaces, and you need to rent them by bus stations and train stations. You don't need to own cars. If you have to own a car, make it an electric car. And this is going down the line. I get calls all the time from property owners saying, we can't even hardly own property in Colorado anymore. They're making it almost impossible. This is all part of the same subject, okay? Now, here's the last pin in that nobody is putting together. We've got the Venezuelan drug cartel that has set up shop in Aurora.
Yep.
First, our leadership, Governor Polis, Attorney General Weiser, Mayor of Denver, Mayor of Aurora, they have all said the same thing. This doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then maybe it exists, but it's not that big of a deal. The DEA has said that Aurora is the headquarters for the Venezuelan drug cartel of the entire United States. We are the headquarters. We know that there's about 45 to 50,000 cartel members in Colorado. This is DEA and ICE statistics. Okay. So why then would we give, because we just passed this a couple months ago, a bill to give $500 million from the state to illegal immigrants, and we know that this is propping up these cartels. Then we see the 100 people down in the 100 illegal immigrants down in Colorado Springs that were arrested as a supposed nightclub. Well, it wasn't a nightclub. What was it? Illegal immigrant cover night? I mean, that makes no sense. And so these were not. This is not a nightclub. It was a bar that was already shut down, and these people were meeting. ICE and the police forces, sheriff, they have talked about how the drug cartel is coming back and forth between Denver and Colorado Springs, and they know that's the primary location. Mm-hmm. Well, these people are setting up a cartel down in Springs. That's all that was happening. ICE, the sheriff's there, the police, Sheriff Roball, I sent him an email. They did a phenomenal job with this bust. They had been watching these people for a long time. Now, on top of that, now we know two other elements. The Venezuelan drug cartel, the leadership in Venezuela has said publicly that they have sent the cartel to America, and specifically to places like Denver, to disrupt the politics, the local systems, to tear down the local systems and municipalities, to cause confusion and all this kind of stuff. Now we've just found out this last week that MS-13 is now cooperating with the Venezuelan drug cartel, and they've taken no holds barred on police. They're open target to shoot police. Now, here's the question. Why would the Democrats in the House and the Senate? I don't think the Democrats of Colorado are part of this.
Right.
I believe we've got some strong leftist Marxists that are part of this thing, because why? All of this is to do what? This is straight out of Marxist ideology. Separate the family, tear down the parental authority, tear down the controls of the government, make crime go crazy. Now we have drug cartels that are doing the heavy lifting for the Marxists in our state to tear down our governmental systems and this control. Then we find 180,000 rounds of ammunition coming through
Utah
from Utah to, well, it didn't start in Utah. It started in Mexico, came up to Utah. That's one accidental stop that a sheriff made. That shows me how many got
what they
through.
caught.
That's the one they
and
caught.
Here's another thing you bring up that's very contentious is that Colorado is a commerce hub for the United States, whether it's our rail, our road, and our airports. We have the largest airport in the United States, third busiest next to Atlanta and Chicago O'Hare. On top of that, we have a massive military-industrial complex. We have NORAD, we have the Air Force Academy, we have Fort Carson, Buckley Space Force Base, Schriever, and Peterson. And at that nightclub cartel bust you're talking about, they found members of the United States military working for these gangs. They are now infiltrating our military ranks. And this is a great way for, like you said, the Marxists to disassociate responsibility, blame it on criminal gangs, trafficking weapons, trafficking humans, trafficking drugs, trafficking money into these states to disrupt one of the most important states when it comes to interstate commerce and air traffic, train traffic, and truck traffic. And if you can infiltrate the military on top of that, this is a massive risk that no one in the state of Colorado is talking about. You know, everyone wants to talk about, things that are hot button topics, abortion, gun rights. And we know with the way the Democrats hold the current electorate, there's nothing we can do about that. And in the meantime, I work in psychological operations and civil affairs. This is what I do in the military. This is an intelligence thing. They draw attention away from the mass uninformed public who isn't paying attention.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, they're bringing in all these massive criminal gangs. And by the time we figure out what's really going on, it's going to be too late. What do you want to do as governor to start resolving these issues and make Colorado safe for Coloradans again?
That's very simple, because there's some basic steps that will automatically change the dynamic throughout the state. One of the first ones, right now, it's against the law we made a law back in 21, reinforced it in 23, that basically says that police departments, sheriffs, local police municipalities, groups, any of these kinds of things, they cannot interact with ICE. They cannot pick up the phone and call ICE. And I've had this conversation dozens of times. You can ask a sheriff, you can ask a police officer, if they see a guy murdering somebody, they watch it happen. They take him to jail. They find out he's undocumented. They have to release him, and they cannot call ICE. It is against the law. They will lose their job, and that police department will be under investigation if they pick up the phone and call ICE and said, we just saw a guy kill a guy, but he's undocumented. That will be number one.
Well, who's going to want to be a police officer after that? And we have lots of young Americans who are looking for jobs, this young generation coming up behind the millennials. And if they are uninspired to become public servants like yourself or firefighters, EMTs, nurses, doctors, anything, because they know that if they do anything wrong, they're going to go to jail, then that is only going to leave one thing left, and that's going to be the best of the worst to help run our law enforcement and protect our citizens.
Right, and then we double down. If somebody had to do some kind of vigilante thing, now they're going to go to jail. It's a guarantee.
And we saw that in New York, right? We saw that with that Marine who choked out that drug addict, and he unfortunately died. And then they tried to put him in prison and charge him with murder.
He was found innocent of all that.
Thank God,
but still,
but that's a huge risk.
Well, so that would be first thing. ICE has got to cooperate. We've got to hammer down on crime specifically. I'm sure you know a lot of the statistics, but we're 1, 2, or 3 in almost every crime statistic across the United States. Denver was found to be the most crime-ridden city in the United States. We're talking over New York and Detroit and Los Angeles.
That's
and all
insane.
Denver.
That's insane.
We've also, the Federal Reserve just released that Colorado is the most expensive state per capita living in any state. We're the 6th most regulated state. We are the number one, most pedophile-friendly state, according to our laws in the United States. And we're also the most human trafficking-friendly state in the entire United States. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to empower our police officers. When police officers are told in Aurora, stand down, that's not okay. The governor, it actually says this in Constitution, that the one third of the governor's job is to protect Colorado from foreign adversaries. Foreign. That doesn't mean New Mexico. That means Venezuelan drug gangs. And not only did he not, he just ignored it. Well, you could take the National Guard in there. I've talked to police, SWAT, everybody. They say, yeah, we could completely take that thing down in 30 minutes. But we don't want to. Why? Because our Marxist leftists are okay with Colorado being dismantled. They're okay with this system being torn down, because then they're going to be the good guys that come to the rescue and say, no, let's all be socialists. That's the only thing that's going to work. All of this has played together to completely destroy Colorado in the process. A few things like that on the police side, on the crime side, and we can fix Colorado pretty quickly. My tagline for governor is that we need to reclaim Colorado. We need to reclaim some basic things like parental rights, but here's a big one. I walked down 16th Street Mall the other day. I just heard they changed the name of it yesterday.
It's 16th Street, and it costs taxpayers $100,000 to take off one name on a sign.
Yeah, the mall off of it.
Yeah.
Well, we used to walk down there. When my
Street.
kids were in junior high, they're all grown now. It's one of my oldest is in his 30s now, but we used to walk down there all the time when they were in junior high and high school, ride our bikes down there, all kinds of things. I walked down there a couple times this last session. You're going to get killed going down 16th
I mean,
Street
they
Mall.
slit the throat of a flight attendant who is here waiting for a flight. They're punching old ladies in the head, and they're stealing snake, and nobody's talking about these things.
Two guys knifed put 4 people in the hospital while we were in session. This is the Colorado that our governor and the mayor of Denver, but also our Attorney General Weiser, they're trying to pursue this. We want to be a sanctuary state. We want to be a sanctuary city. Weiser, we actually passed a law that gave the governor $4 million extra to defend himself when President Trump sends A.G. Bondi after Weiser or whoever and says, no, you cannot keep breaking federal law. They said, well, let's set aside some money to defend people breaking the law in our state against the government that says stop breaking the law. This is the craziness that we are in Colorado right now.
And you bring up something very interesting, too, is the amount of money that we are spending in the state of Colorado. We are in a lot of debt. We're spending money like it doesn't exist. But the interesting fact, I mean, I work in oil and gas. I work at the local refinery and the Steelworkers Union. And Denver City just last week said we're canceling the $25 million contract for the asphalt paving for the state of Colorado. The refinery here in Denver is responsible for 100% of the asphalt production in the state of Colorado because they say we're emitting too many emissions. And that's insane because when we shut down the refinery for some workarounds and then we did our community monitoring, the emissions were net zero, exactly the same as when we're running at 110,000 barrels a day.
Right.
Weld County, just a few months ago, was listed number 7 largest oil production county in the United States. Colorado itself, next to North Dakota, Texas, and New Mexico, is number 4 in oil production. We have enough liquid gold, as President Trump had said, to not only pay off every single debt, but to actually fund the programs that actually are important for the state of Colorado. But as we've seen, all the companies I used to work for no longer are here. They all left the state. I used to work on the upstream side, and we've all left. The farmers and the ranchers are suffering now with water rights and everything else. And now, they passed a nuclear energy bill. And nuclear energy sounds great. Like, it's good. It's good for some things, especially for mountain towns, not building pipelines in there. But that's going to take 10 to 15 years to even build these places. We have enough oil and gas in the state of Colorado to pay off everything, have hundreds of thousands of good jobs, millions and billions of dollars of revenue. And they want to shut it down, and then they want to raise our taxes and, just cause the Colorado taxpayer more pain and suffering and all, making up this, green energy bill or, getting rid of all these good paying jobs and trying to plummet on the NREL out in, Boulder that we're going to put a bunch of wind turbines out there. What are you going to do as governor to empower the energy sector and help the farmers and ranchers here in the state? I think that's a question that a lot of governor candidates have avoided and not answered in the past.
No, I'll definitely answer that. We are an oil, gas, and coal state. Okay, that is the reality, and this is the bread and butter for Colorado. It's the jobs, it's the everything. But even if you take all of the kind of the down to the local level jobs and money and stuff like that, we have so many resources at hand. But I don't worship at the altar of environmentalism. Okay, I do not worship Mother Earth. I think that this stuff has been put here by God for us to use. The idea that somehow we would shut down the biggest industry that Colorado is makes no sense. We should be pushing toward that. And as governor, I'll tear down the idea of, well, solar and wind is covering all of our bases. It's not. Everybody knows it's not. It's being subsidized and still coming up very, very short. Maybe 50 years in the future, it's the technology, but it is not the technology today. It is oil, gas, and coal. And we've
Planes don't
proven,
fly off of batteries.
yes, they don't. And we've proven over and over, we have clean coal. We have clean energy. I don't believe we're hurting the environment by doing these things. We need to, what was the phrase a few years back? We need to drill, baby, drill. But we are stopping. And I'll give you another little insight into this that I think is important. I've had many people come to me and show me on the map of Colorado where we have lithium and cobalt in Colorado.
Yep.
But we're using slaves in South Africa and other places in Africa to build our electric car industry here in America. That's egregious.
Yeah.
We can we can dig right here in Colorado.
We're supporting human trafficking by doing that.
We're
and
supporting-
empowering China and Russia and India, which are our near peer adversaries, to produce them at a lower cost because we don't want to bring those industry jobs here and actually further our technology.
I am going to shore up and strengthen oil, gas, and coal in Colorado. This is idiocy that we've been going after this industry. This will make, we could literally be the richest state in the United States.
You could.
Can you imagine that?
You could.
But we're rejecting it, and so we've got to stop. We've got to stop attacking ourselves in the process. Now, part of that also, and I think these are tied together, is we're allowing China to buy property, and I don't mean just Chinese people. I'm saying the
farmland.
Chinese government,
Yeah.
farmland, and they're buying farmland around military bases. Governor Polis hates the agriculture industry. He
Yes.
hates it. He acts like he doesn't, but he hates it. Our farmers and ranchers are what kept Colorado alive for a long time. And here's the crazy thing, that we could get all of the beef, pork, all of the things that we need from our own ranchers and farmers in Colorado, but we're buying beef from Taiwan. We're buying beef from Vietnam. I heard the other day,
And
we're
New
making a
Zealand.
deal. New Zealand,
Australia.
Why don't we buy beef from Coloradans?
I mean, just in Greeley alone, JBS is one of the largest meat packing facilities in the United States. And another thing that I don't think people in Colorado understand is because of our climate and the way things are, there is a secure facility in the state that houses all of our agricultural seeds that actually for regenerative farming and everything else that's protected here because of our state, right? We are not understanding the importance that this, if you want to increase the population, have kids, run our families, everything else, you need food, right? And the greatest way to sow civil discourse is take away people's food, water, and electricity. And in the state of Colorado, all I've seen the Democrats is affect our electricity production, violate farmers and ranchers' water rights. And Colorado Springs is literally running out of water. They built an $18 million pipeline from Pueblo Reservoir to Colorado Springs. We're a first use state, and I'm a licensed wastewater treatment operator in the state of Colorado. This is what I do. There is not enough water to support the massively expanding population. And another contentious issue I'd like your opinion on is we currently house Space Command here in the state of Colorado. And there's a lot of talk about trying to move it back down to Alabama. And, can we even support expanding Colorado Springs to twice its size to house Space Command, to bring all these people in, double the size of the airport, double the housing, when we don't have any water? Like, where should Space Command be, and how can we support Colorado Springs and its ever-expanding population boom where you live?
Yeah, water is always going to be one of your major issues in the state of Colorado. Part of the problem that we're having is not just water within Colorado itself, the state, but it's where we're sending it to and who we're selling it to. Nobody ever addresses that because we're looking at downstream. You've got a handful of people in Colorado making a lot of money for water to leave Colorado and go somewhere else.
Yeah, make almond milk in California.
Why are we not saying, wait a second, yes, we do know that water needs to flow downhill and there's other states it needs, but we're selling this at high rates so people can get rich instead of making sure that Coloradans have water instead of money in the process. Now, Space Command's a big issue. Space Command's actually in my district, okay? So I would love Space Command to stay here. I would love Space Command to grow, but let's look at it from a couple of other angles. President Trump is saying, let's put it in Alabama. We have military people. So I pastor a church. I've been pastoring a church for 35 years. The church I pastor in Colorado Springs has quite a few military and retired military in it. Springs is a destination state for retired military. It just is. And we have now young families that are coming in that are being part of Space Force and also Peterson, but being part of Space Force in a specific sense that are saying, okay, I'm coming to Colorado and I'm going to raise my 2 young children, but they're being under direct attack in the schools for a grooming process. So I literally have people that are saying, I mean, military people are saying, we would much rather go to Alabama. Well, I don't want Space Force to go to Alabama, but how do you argue with that? How do you argue when all of the egregious things that are coming out of our house are trying to destroy them and take their property away? And take property away from, this is a big one coming back to the farming ranching. We're seeing property all over the state of Colorado that are farming ranching spaces that the state is trying to take away from them because there are mineral rights under those.
Yeah.
Under that. So we've got this broken corruption at the very highest levels. I want Space Force to stay here, but we have to answer the water problem. We've got to stop selling it downstream. We've got to use it for Coloradans, and we've got to use it sensibly in Colorado to support our own infrastructure. We are crumbling infrastructure-wise. It's being falsely propped up with this wind and solar and all these other things. We can live in Colorado, and we can live much, much cheaper than we're doing, but we're destroying that internally. We're destroying our own state from the House of Representatives and the Senate and the governor.
Yeah, and another thing I've seen too is after they started building that pipeline down in Pueblo for water, is that all the farmland that's existed down for 100 years is drying up. We are literally destroying our own food supply, raising our own prices for that food. We don't have enough houses to put people in the Springs if we want to expand Space Command. You're going to have to double the size of that airport just to handle the additional military traffic coming out of the state. And let's be honest, we welcome a lot of different people who are qualified to meet the standard to join the military, but most of the people that join the military, like you mentioned, are conservative Christians who want to raise their families in moral, ethical areas. And, if they're fighting crackheads and, drag story queen hour, down in the libraries, who wants to bring their kid to those things? We are becoming an uninviting state to the majority of Americans who believe in these ethical and moral values. Everyone says, we need to include everybody. We need to be an inclusive country. Well, I mean, let's do the numbers on it. It's less than 10% of Americans identify with these extreme leftist groups or these extreme, transgender ideology. And that's fine. You're an American. You can exist by the Constitution. That's fine. We're not out here to eliminate you. But everyone talks about democracy. Well, democracy is the majority. It's over 50%. And if over 50% of the people don't want these things, then why are we allowing the minority to run how we want to run our state? And I think this is what has disillusioned so many unaffiliated. I mean, most of the electorate in the state of Colorado is unaffiliated. They're either conservative leaning or they're liberal leaning, but they don't want to even get involved or participate. So it leaves a very small group of people that you've dealt with personally in the state to control everything. And everyone is accused of Trump supporting this, or he might be a pastor this, or he's too extreme. That's why we need to elect Michael Bennett. Okay. What are you going to do as governor to bring in the unaffiliated voters in order to support you for governor and make Colorado sane again?
We're already seeing this. So when I first came into the House, I came in the same time as Ken DeGraff did, Representative DeGraff. We came together. We were
tax-paying widgets, everybody.
Yeah, we were.
Love Ken.
I'm telling you, that guy's my hero. So we came together. We did a lot of campaigning together. The guy's a genius, all this kind of stuff. And we really started beating the drum of conservatism. That hadn't been shouted too strongly and too loudly in the House as of late. And so we started really, really strongly saying this. And I'll just throw this in as a side. Our caucus this year was way more conservative than it was the last 2 years. That was very encouraging.
Yeah, Brandy Bradley's also been doing a great job out there.
I'm a little scared of Brandy, but
love that lady. Thanks, Brady.
So here's what we started doing, and then we started getting emails, and we did not realize that we had quite a few emails that were coming to the Republican caucus about us and this, and we didn't know this because the caucus leadership didn't like Ken and I, and so keeping it a secret. But finally, a staffer said, these emails are coming in, and sent us a few. Now they sent us maybe 4 or 5, but there were hundreds of these emails coming in, and this was basically what was being said. I got out of the Republican Party 5 years ago. I got out of the Republican Party 3 years ago, blah, blah. I'm independent. I'm unaffiliated. I'm all these things. But watching you fight, and specifically talking to me and Ken DeGraff, watching you two fight in the House, I think I can be a Republican again. We are already seeing, and I still see this constantly. I get phone calls. I get phone calls from Democrats all over the state. I get phone calls from Democrat donors in the state of Colorado that have said over and over and over, how can we make you governor? Why? because the Democrats in the House and the Senate have lost their minds. They're truly leftist Marxist. I think 9 of them are registered as Democrat Socialist.
Yeah.
Well, the average Democrat in the state of Colorado is not okay with this.
No.
And so I'm already reaching the unaffiliated and the independents, and I'm going to keep doing that, okay? We know that Bennett's going to rise to the top of this. It's not going to be Attorney General Weiser. He might actually be in jail.
There's a lot of out-of-state money coming in for his race, and it's disappointing.
Lot of out-of-state money. Bennett's going to be the guy that comes to the surface on the Democrat side. Everybody knows that. Polis is behind him too. And then there's the rumor they're going to switch. Bennett's going to resign, run for governor. Polis is going to be appointed to his Senate seat. I don't know. But either way, we know Polis long-term wants to be president. But I'm already reaching the independents and unaffiliated, and I'm reaching Democrats across the entire state. I will be the next governor, and I will beat Bennett. Bennett is very beatable, hands down. Here's
even in person.
Yeah. Here's the question that I ask people when they talk about Bennett. Can you beat Bennett? Name one thing Bennett's done in 10 years.
Well, I gotta tell you this one quick funny story about Michael Bennett from my personal experience with him. So I was part of the 19th Special Forces group here at the Colorado Army National Guard. We were deployed to January 6th by Jason Crow and Jared Polis and Michael Bennett and everyone else. We went out there thinking we're gonna just start shooting Americans in the face. Apparently, they gave us a bunch of ammo, and we get out there, and it was not what you think it is, people. Let me tell you, it was not what people think it was at all. And we get out there, and Senator Bennett, who called us out there, and it was freezing, absolutely freezing cold. And most Colorado National Guardsmen, unlike me, I'm from the East Coast. I understand how the East Coast is. Negative 10 degrees on the East Coast feels like negative 40 because of the humidity. So most Coloradans, I can handle negative 10, just my regular uniform. I don't need to bring any insulated boots and jackets. They suffered very badly, and I left. It was very funny for me. Michael Bennett shows up, not realizing we had over 100 Colorado National Guardsmen out there standing in the middle of the night, freezing our butts off, waiting to protect, the United States or whatever else. And he is so disillusioned with the reality of the sacrifice that the Colorado National Guard had done for that, taking a 7-hour flight on a C-130 in the middle of the night, to land on the tarmac at Andrews, and
those are pretty comfortable.
Not comfortable at all, and also not air conditioned or heated. We get on the ground, and he shows up. I just want to thank all the National Guardsmen here supporting and protecting our state of Colorado and our great country. So I got you guys some food, and I can't make this up, Scott. With over 120 National Guardsmen for the state of Colorado that he sent us out there, he showed up with 2 pizzas.
Wow, that's a giver.
2 pizzas, and I'm like, I'm just going to give it to the privates. I'll give it to the 18-year-olds. They're starving. I'll go suffer in silence. It's fine. And this is the disconnect that some of these politicians have. And I think another focus on this, what I think is really important, is that, I tried supporting the Colorado State GOP when I came back, working on the Trump campaign with the American Veterans First Association out of D.C. With all the bills the D.O.G.E. Act I'm trying to pass with the Air Force Academy to reform sexual assault retaliation, which has been a problem for over 20 years. I love that place. I want to fix it. Same does Ken DeGraff. And I would love your support in the future if we try to get that. I really appreciate that. But when I see the new state leadership, and give them a shot, hey, let's see what you can do. And I see the complete disillusionment. I mean, even my own representative, Representative Gabe Evans, Jeff Hurd, Jeff Crank, who's in the Air Force Academy District, Lauren Boebert, and they completely snubbed me on reforming a bipartisan issue of sexual assault reform at the United States Air Force Academy. They snubbed the oil and gas workers, the farmers and ranchers, and these are the platforms that they run on constantly. I supported them throughout their campaigns, and not just me, plenty of other constituents of influence as well. And we see that they're just more or less happy holding an R next to their name. And I'm not calling them Democrats per se, but their objective is to stay elected and to stay in the seat. And, as long as we have R's in seats, then we're going to do great. But we've seen, unless we have men of action like yourself or Representative DeGraff or Representative Bradley, who are actually putting themselves on the firing line every single day, nothing is ever going to change in this state.
Right.
And there's so many divisions in the Republican Party and even the Democratic Party. But I mean, I've had plenty of conversations with the Democrats as well because I'm in a union, right? I have to go to these union meetings, and I've had more pleasant conversations with Democratic representatives I had with Republicans in the state. What do you think you can do as governor to not only reunify the Republican Party to make it make sense, but also to be able to ethically reach across the aisle and work with Democrats to pass bipartisan common sense legislation? Because I've seen other representatives in this state, who are senators who don't have a very good voting record when it comes to supporting conservative values. And it seems that their narcissism gets the best of them on these things. But you seem like you're a very moral and ethical person from a religious perspective, and it seems like it's grounded you in your decision making. What do you think you can do as governor to unite all of these factions to get Colorado back to making Colorado great again?
There's a few steps into this. One is pre-governor. Let me give that first. as I'm campaigning here, I know I need some seats in the House and the Senate. The Republicans are talking maybe we can get 5, 6 seats in the House. I think we can get 9. I've targeted those 9. I know where they are. And we can get seats in the Senate too. So I've got a plan of how to do this, and I've talked to a couple different states. I have a guy in Washington State that works for the GOP there that has a plan to flip seats. And so I've already reached out to our state party chair and vice chair and secretary there. I've also reached out to our caucus leadership. And so far, they're saying, hey, let's get together and meet. I'm going to present my plan to them. They don't have to take the plan. They can come up with their own plan. They can do whatever they want. A plan, I'll tell you what is not a plan, is, hey, does anybody want to run? That's not a plan.
That's the bad plan.
That's not a plan. So we need a legitimate plan where we say, we know these are the seats, this is how we target each seat, and this is how we go after each district uniquely to that district for each plan.
That's a good point.
And I have this, okay?
Democrats actually do that strategically.
They do it very strategically.
And they run one candidate per district or section. They're smart. I think the biggest issue that we even see with the governor race is, well, we have, what, 12 people running for governor? The Republican Party is so split between itself, they can't unify behind a single candidate to win. You know, if people want Scott Bottoms to win in the Republican Party, all Republicans should just be supporting Scott Bottoms, not, well, I don't like what he said about this, or I had this person do this. That's how you lose. The Democrats are going to unite behind Michael Bennet, whether they like him or not, and all the funding and efforts are going to go towards that. But I think you bring a really good point. Same thing with all these districts, right? Is we need to unify behind single candidates if we want them to win. And yeah, they need to be vetted a little bit. We need to make sure that they're actually going to do what they say they're going to do versus some representatives saying they're going to do something and they come in and not do it at all. Right? I mean, you bring up such a good point, is that unifying behind the Republican Party doesn't mean just unifying as a whole. It means unifying to win in hard-to-win districts. And I think the way you win governor is shouting that message out, is that we need to get behind a single candidate and run that candidate until the finish line.
Yeah, and here's a reality with this. I'm not necessarily going to be on the same page as our GOP state chair. Okay,
Sure.
I'm saying philosophically. But we are on the same page when it comes to the idea we need to pick up seats. We need to win mayor races. We need to win commissioner races. We need to win all this stuff. So even though I may not philosophically be on the same page, and I've had this conversation with some of our leadership, they know who I am. I'm not a compromised person.
No.
But we do need to pick up seats. And some of these people that are running in certain districts, they may not be the people that I pick, but I will help win these seats in the Senate and the House. Because when I'm governor, I need them. I need the seats in the Senate because I need confirmation seats. And then I need the seats in the House because we need budget seats. And so we're going to work together. And I hope we are. I mean, the state GOP theoretically could just say, no, we don't like your plan. Let's toss it out. Okay, then present your plan to me and maybe I can get on board with that. But either way, we need to stop going at each other. Now, once I'm governor, here's the next step of this. Part of the reason these Democrats have reached out to me, because I've asked them. I'm like the most conservative, at least one of the top 2 or 3 most conservative in the House, right? So if that's the case, why are the Democrats, and I'm saying, when you say big Democrat donors, you're talking hardcore Democrats, like they've been doing this a long time kind of thing. Why are these people reaching out to me? I ask them directly, what are you doing this? And they say basically a couple of things. One, we know you can get the job done. Okay,
things aren't getting done in the state. Let's be honest.
I've proven that I can get the job done. All right, but here's the other side of this, and this is the question I would ask of anybody that is saying, because I get the question also, well, as a pastor, are you going to institute theocracy in the state? And all that is such a stupid question.
What are you, Matt Walsh now?
I can't even institute theocracy in my church.
You better.
So the idea that somehow I can control how people think and believe in all this, it's idiocy. But here's what I do bring to the table in this. I'm not going to be bought. I don't lie. I'm corrupt. I'm not corrupt. I'm moral. All of these things are the reality. I am not going to be what we've seen over the last few governors. And people are saying, well, can we really put a pastor in this position, an honest person? Do you finally want somebody that will tear down corruption instead of being corrupt? Do you want somebody that will take a moral stand in their own marriage, their own family, and with the state? Or do you want people that will literally destroy the fabric of who we are as a society? I'm reclaiming these things back to Colorado. We used to be known all over the United States. I would travel. And I'd say, well, I'm from Colorado. Specifically, when I say I'm from Colorado Springs, people are like, oh, it's so beautiful. I love Colorado. What about the skiing? What about the hiking? Don't you love living there? I haven't had that in 5 or 6 years. When I travel now, people say, Colorado, what happened to that place? What's with the drugs and the fentanyl? We're known for grooming. We're known for transgender. We're known for crime. When did this happen? Well, it happened specifically in the last administration, but it was building up before that. I want to reclaim this stuff. Take a chance on me as being a pastor that I might actually tell you the truth in a press conference rather than lie right to you. This is what I bring to the table that seems to be lost on the people. And Democrats tell me this all the time. I had one of the Democrat leaders in the House come over to me, and I've butted heads with them many times, pretty much every time I say something. But they came across the aisle to me specifically and said to me, just the last few days of session, they said, you're one of the most tender-hearted, real people that I've ever met. I'm like, well, thank you. And they said, who you are down in the well is not totally who you are. It's part of who you are. And I said, it is part of who I will. When you're trying to take our kids away, I'm going to be a bulldog and I'm going to fight like you have never seen. You are not taking our kids. And they said, but you also have this tender side. It's because I'm a human. And also, by the way, I've been a pastor for 35 years. You can't be a jerk and be a pastor. You can't be this arrogant thing that I get accused of all the time to be a pastor. My people love me, and I love my people. And my people also include the entire state of Colorado. I love this state. I love these people, but I am watching them being destroyed systematically by a Marxist regime in Colorado, and I'm not okay with that. I don't have to know the person personally to know I will fight for their kids. I will fight for their freedom. I will fight for the dignity of who they are, because that's been stripped of them here in Colorado as of late.
No, I agree with you. And I think one of the biggest things you bring out, and this is actually why I am hated probably by half of the Republican Party in the state of Colorado, is because I call them out when they don't abide by those values. And it bothers me. After fighting in federal court to try to fix the Air Force Academy and all the personal attacks, which come up unclaimed, but people just love these things. And I will only support moral and ethical candidates moving forward. I don't care if there's an R next to your name. I really don't. Right. Because what I see is the second these people start seeing the dollar signs and they start seeing special favors, they lose their way. And everyone says, oh, we should have non-secular politicians. We don't need church. We don't need this. Well, you want to know what? The people who have religious values put God above everything else. From a personal perspective, that's great. And if you can't abide by an ideology, whatever religion that may be, in order to form your decision-making process when things do get hard and you are presented with corruption. People like you, I feel, moving forward, could potentially actually fix this state because you are a moral, ethical, religious person.
Yeah, I this is my response to many people that are saying, well, I'm not a Christian. Should I vote for a Christian? It's interesting that Christianity is the only one that comes up in the subject. All the other religions don't matter, I guess, in this. But when they say, do we really want a Christian or specifically even a pastor as governor? I always try to explain to them the understanding of honesty and morality. Even if you're not a Christian, you have to recognize when somebody truly is a Christian, they really try to follow the teachings of Scripture, follow the teachings of Jesus, that demands that I be a moral person. It demands that I be a person of honesty. It demands that I don't undercut or attack other people in the process. I will not, I've had these conversations for years. I had a guy a handful of years ago, say to me that if I would just do this, doesn't matter what it was, but if I would just do this, that he'd give the church over $1 million to build our building. Well, I'm not going to be bought. I'm not going to compromise.
Thank you for saying that.
Because of something that I really would like to see. I am not corrupt. I have proven this over 35 years of being a pastor, and I will prove it over the 8 years that I'm governor. I am not corrupt. I will not be bought. I am going to do what I believe truly is the best for the people, for the children, for the industries, for oil, gas, coal. I'm going to do what is best for the state of Colorado, and I'm not going to be bought. Can you unequivocally say that of any governor that's come up in the last 15 years? Can you say that of half the people in the House?
No.
Or the Senate on either side of the aisle? Can you honestly say that?
No, and I'm aware of a lot of those dealings in corruption. That's why I've been outed by even many people of our own party, is because I've exposed some of the corruption that's been going on within my own conservative party. And they don't like when I talk about it. I mean, I literally had death threats against me if I talked about it publicly against this very prominent Republican in our party. And they said, you better shut up or you better keep your guns at your door. That's what was literally told to me. And I sat there and went, well, I guess I'm going to keep podcasting then.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, now you've just motivated me. I'm from New Jersey, man. I mean, come on. You know, I know the Tony Soprano people, so to speak, right? So Scott, I just want to thank you for coming on the show today, because you have laid out, I mean, I don't know you as an individual. Let's be honest here. Like, we're not friends. Like, just to be 100% clear.
Thanks for that.
You know what I mean? But I think now we are. You know what I mean? Is because I've gotten to know you as a man. I've got to know you as a person. What your moral and ethics are, whatever they may be. What are you going to tell the people of Colorado as they go into the governor's race from all around the state, every county that we can get this pushed to? Why should they vote for you in the next governor race, and why are you going to be the best choice to be the next governor of the state of Colorado?
Yeah, this is the best question I get. First, I've proven I'm a fighter. I'm not. You've mentioned that. You've watched. Many people have watched what goes down in the House. I'm not going to give up. In fact, the more difficult they make it, the more I just rise to the occasion. When they stand up and say you can't use these words, I write them down because I'm going to use every one of them. You cannot take my free speech away. You are not going to take my Second Amendment away. You're not going to take my kids away, and I'm going to fight for these things. I say this in the House, and this irritates certain demographics, but I'm going to fight for every baby too. I'm going to fight for all the black babies, all the brown babies, all the white babies. I'm going to fight for every baby. I'm going to fight for every child. I'm going to fight for every family, every parent. And it doesn't matter to me whether people think I have ulterior motives or what. I know who I am. I am the only candidate that can truly beat Bennett. And I think a casual look across the field right now, that this becomes kind of obvious, at least in my opinion, it becomes obvious. I'm the only candidate that can beat Bennett. I will reclaim Colorado. I will. And we're going to do this across the whole state. I've been all over the state already. I'm going to touch every single inch of ground possible in the state of Colorado talking to people, because we need to reclaim the amazingness of Colorado, the freedom, the liberty that we used to be known, this, Midwestern, don't get in our way kind of state. We were known for this stuff. I'm going to reclaim this. I'm going to reclaim every bit of this, where people are going to look at Colorado again and say, I want to live there. Not only that, I can afford to live there. And I'm not worried about my children when I live there. We're going to do this. We're going to bring so many jobs back to the state of Colorado. Just during COVID, we lost 40% of all of our jobs. Not because there was a pandemic, but because we stayed closed when other states opened.
Yeah, and we closed on the oil and gas. They pushed all of our jobs out.
This is not okay. We've got to destroy this Marxist regime mentality that's been built, and I'm going to do that. I've already got the plan. I've already got my first 100 days pretty much mapped out. We're going to institute D.O.G.E. We're going to cut the budget by billions.
Good.
We're going to build a coalition that looks into not just in a D.O.G.E. mentality, but in a constitutional mentality from the House of Representatives and the Senate. Are these bills actually constitutional? We pass unconstitutional bills all the time. That's supposed to be taken care of and stopped, but we're not doing it. And so you look down the line, you look at anywhere I can fix the tax issue. I'm going to eventually do away completely with income tax. We're going to attack property taxes and eventually even do away with those. You can actually do this and run a
mountainous
state.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida's proven they're going to do it. We're going to get right in line with that mentality. Why? Because we're going to reclaim Colorado. We're going to reclaim it at every level. I had somebody ask me, well, if you do all of that, how are we going to support all of the programs and stuff in the state of Colorado? All these bills that have been passed that are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions, even into the billions of dollars. I have no intention of keeping those running. I want them to be destroyed. We are destroying our economy, our families, and everything, and we're doing it through legislation, and we're doing it through corruption, and we're doing it through overriding the will and the attitude of the people of Colorado. Well, I'm going to reclaim that stuff, and we're actually going to. From the ground up, we're going to rebuild Colorado back into what it used to be. And it was a destination state for amazing things, not for transgenderism and abortion and stuff like that. We used to be a destination state for our skiing industry and our hiking and our rivers and rafting and all this. We're going to rebuild this, and I'm going to reclaim Colorado.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming on the show today. This has been an inspiring interview for me. I always like great conversation, and I think it's really important that we get this message out to the people of Colorado. So this has been Adam Dorito and Representative Scott Bottoms, hopefully the next governor of Colorado, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.